Hello everyone, welcome to a special edition of the Hugh Virtual Chat. It is Wednesday, it is afternoon, it is bright and sunny outside, and we are in a third lockdown. So the topic today is mental health from all walks of life. And I'm going to open up the doors right now. We have so many wonderful guests on today's show. And oh my goodness, I just said everybody that, it's so beautiful outside, but we all are kind of in this fog. I don't know, I'm hoping I'm not the only one, but I think I gathered all of you here just for support. There's so much happening. Now, okay, the vaccines, that's a whole issue, or maybe not an issue. Now, 18 years and older can get the vaccine. Schools have been shut down. What that means to families, and especially women, who have really, I think, carried the brunt of everything throughout this pandemic and with COVID-19. And then, of course, it's just straight out mental health. Like, this is a time when we want to get outside, we want to be with people, we want to go out for dinner, we want to talk and share and laugh. And it just seems like it's been an eternity, and now we can't do it again. So I don't know where I want to go first, but because he is the only guy on the show, I'm going to say gentlemen first. And Sean, you might want to unmute yourself, but it's a pleasure to meet you. And I know that Sean, Winnipeg is only 6 or 7 degrees of separation. So Sean, I know you know a lot of these faces here today, and it is my pleasure. He is the Executive Director of Peer Connections Manitoba. And first of all, Sean, I think your organization really should be and is out in the forefront to really help all of us. So just kind of give us an overview of what Peer Connections is all about.
Thank you. I am really honored to be a part of this show, and seeing, like you mentioned, seeing a lot of familiar faces. So that's fantastic. Work closely with a few of them, and so it's really good to be in the presence of all of you. Peer Connections Manitoba, that's, if you want the really formal answer, I could get into a lot of like corporate speak, but I'd rather just talk about the organization in really down to earth terms. We're a charitable organization that's comprised of people that have lived experience of mental health and addictions issues, or individuals that are supporting loved ones with mental health or addictions issues. So that we find is a great common connector. It's something that we've got in common with so many of Manitobans. So we're uniquely poised right now to be able to support and connect with people in the community because of the impact of COVID on mental health. All of those things are training by Robyn Priest and Charlotte and Kirsten really helps us and positions us. We're in clinical spaces, we're in community, and we offer peer support. So our superpower is connecting with people through that lived experience. And it's just a fantastic opportunity right now because we know the needs are so high within Manitoba. So that's just a little bit about our organization, and we can unpack that as we get into the conversation.
Yeah, so I'm going to quickly ask you, Sean, what have been your most impactful programs, or, and I hate to say it, but popular, or you get a lot of response from?
Well, it's right now we're really seeing, COVID of course has highlighted the need for mental health supports, and it's really interesting. Over the years, the system, the very clinical approach, there's high demand for peer support. People really want to talk to somebody who's been through what they're going through. Mm-hmm. So we're finding that there's huge need. Just a really quick anecdote. We've served over 2,000 people through the inception of our peer-to-peer program, and that's peer support within the clinical space, and that we have that happening in both Winnipeg and Dauphin. So there's been a huge demand for that. The response has been overwhelming. We evaluate everything that we do, and so the feedback that we're getting is overwhelmingly positive.
Oh, well, we're going to continue on about that. It's so important. I'm going to go actually now to Carmyn, because Carmyn it's Wednesday and the schools are shut down. And I feel the angst, and I don't even have kids going to school. And I know that a lot of us, we do have the capabilities. I had that conversation with my husband, and he says, no, we would make it work. But there is a lot of pressure, right? And a lot of anxiety for families that can't make it work. So I'm going to go to you, Carmyn. She's head of KidThink, and it's all about children's mental health. And thinking of the parents, but also the kids too. What does this mean?
Yeah, well, our perspective at KidThink is very important because we do focus on kids 12 and under, but it's about the parents and the school system and the support system around the kids that's really important. And, having kids myself, ironically, my child that hasn't had as many issues in terms of having a mental illness and working with that, he's having a hard time struggling. It's the outgoing nature of some of these children and the need to have these connections with their friends, and it's all changed, and it's really hard. And it's hard to get the honesty from them to understand their feelings and for them to feel, okay, I can feel this way, because you just want to try to make it better, and it's so hard right now. So it's very stressful for parents, very stressful for kids, and I can just imagine how stressful it is for the education system because they're trying so hard to offer school for kids, and then they've got to change, in a minute's notice and repivot what they're doing.
Well, for yourself, like you said, you're a parent. So what do you do right now? I mean, I don't know what the correct word is, but do you try to keep?
It's interesting because every school has been different. So it's been great for my kids because they've been in school full time up until now. And so that's been really fortunate to keep some sort of routine. But it's now the cancellations of the sports plus the school that's really impacting them. And it's, it's trying to keep some level of routine, trying to find maybe new skills or something that they can develop, which is very limited right now. But golf, I found out, is one for the kids.
Yes.
So yeah, it's hard for parents. We've got to keep being creative to keep, some joy within these kids.
Yeah, well, we'll come back later and talk more about KidThink, but yeah, I just wanted your opinion on what you're doing. I wanted to also talk about our mental health too. There's been some words, one in particular, languishing, reentry anxiety, fear of crowds, fear of flying, and I don't know, I guess we can add another one, fear of homeschooling. So I asked Lindsay Leipzig to join us. She's a psychologist. And first of all, Lindsay, although you know what, could we maybe reposition you because you have a window behind you and you're very dark, and we wanted to, if there's perfect, just flip it around. It's the beauty of doing virtual. And there's Milo. So Lindsay just had a baby boy. His name is Milo. Oh my goodness, he's cute. Oh wow, so you have had some joy in all of this, right, Lindsay?
I have had joy, which has been nice, yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
so I know, actually, you were on our show like last year, just before the baby, and talking about school too, as well. But now I want to talk to you more in a clinical sense, because I actually did the bad thing and Googled languishing, and then there was an article, and it says that languishing is the second forgotten child in mental health. Or the second child that's been forgotten, because there's like anxiety and depression, and then there's languishing in between. So maybe you can kind of give us a little bit of a tutorial on what we're feeling right now.
Thank you. Well, I'm not a psychologist yet, actually. I still have my thesis to write, which I'm working on. So once that's done, then. And the last time I was here, I was pregnant and ready to pop, and now he's here. So I can't even believe that. I didn't look it up when you emailed me, so I didn't do my research. But what I would say is that the fear is real, and that the fear needs to be valued and heard, and not just with kids, but with adults. The fear of re-entering, and we look at Israel as an example, not now, but they went back to concerts and gyms and restaurants, and they went back to normal life. And when I saw the news and saw that, I felt like everyone was just back like it hadn't happened. And I don't know if that's going to happen here. I think there's going to be a real transition for kids, for sure. teenagers for sure, especially because they're now home for May, June, July, August. They're probably not going to see their friends for 4 months. And those that don't play games online, or those that don't have FaceTime, or those that don't know how to send a Snapchat, they're not going to have that connection for a really, really long time. And I think that transition piece will be super hard. I think the biggest thing is that it's been like this for so long, and this has been our way, but we haven't been talking about, because we don't want to get our hopes up when things go back to the way they are, when we can finally go back to restaurants and concerts and gyms. We kind of aren't talking about it because we're like in the throes of it now. Like right now, I'd say it is the worst. And I think for everyone, it's one day at a time. And we're not talking about the future yet. I think the education, I think we're going to have a good plan in place of how to get students engaged again in the classroom, and not just with teachers, but with each other. And I think there has to be a plan in place for that. I feel for them. I feel for the parents, like Carmyn said, that have to work, and they've been through this all again in the last spring, and now they're going through it again, and it's year 2. And I feel for people who don't know that there's peer support out there to actually speak with others who have walked in their shoes.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And Milo, he's like, he says, yeah, okay, Mom, that's enough. He's so cute. Oh,
Like,
and
nice to see you now, Mom.
He's so wonderful. I'm Linda, and hi Cynthia that just joined us. Linda, for you, as a, you're our life coach and business coach, and you've seen everybody, from their lowest to their highest. How can you explain this middle point of just nah? Yeah.
I was taking in what everyone was saying, and I appreciate Carmyn, you were saying about keeping routines and focusing on new skills that people can develop. I think those are great strategies. And Lindsay, you were saying about acknowledging that the fear is real, like the fear of reentry, and the fear, it's real, and the experience that we're all going through has consequences. I would like to pose the question for myself and for everyone, is that we also have opportunity here for post-traumatic growth. And that's a field that I think we can turn to for some answers to how to not just get through this, but to get through this and make things better. Our education system is going through a dramatic, challenging time. But let's be honest, the education system was not great to begin with. A lot of students were left behind in that system. A lot of students did not thrive in that system. And a lot of people's mental health struggled in that system. So there's an opportunity now for us to really look at the education system, how it can work better for kids, how it can work better for teachers. Really, we have an opportunity to look at an institution that has been in place for, how many 100 and some years, that was built on a structure that was not necessarily going to benefit. I think it was built on a post-industrial revolution structure that was really about creating factory workers rather than empowered, emboldened citizens. So we have an opportunity here. And so I know there is, I'm looking at the screen at some of the most powerful thinkers that I know, and people who have been through traumas of their own and come out stronger. So I like to focus on that. How are we going to come out of this stronger? Because as a coach, if I have the thought, if I wake up in the morning and I have the thought, I'm languishing, I can tell you that my energy is going to be low. My ability to take action is going to be challenged. I'm not going to be focusing on, how I can make positive change in my world. I'm going to be kind of settled in that murkiness. But if I wake up and I have the thought, we can figure this out, or we can make this even better, my energy is going to be completely different. I'm going to be able to have some motivation for finding answers that are going to benefit all of us. So that's what I'd like. I'd love to hear other people's thoughts about that. Post-traumatic growth, how are we going to manifest this?
Rana.
Yep, I'm with her. I'm totally with her. Yeah, look, I think we can, like, it's this conversation, like, we can't minimize the actual feelings and experiences that everyone is having within their own families, the children are having, the parents are having, teachers are having, nurses are having. We can't minimize that because it's so deeply real and we're all in it. Like, we're just so consumed by it. But throughout history, across the entire universe, forever and ever and ever, where there was crisis, there is opportunity. Where there is crisis, there is opportunity. And the only reason this was a crisis, because the system didn't work. The system didn't work to begin with. So I get what we're going through. We're all going through it. But and I've said this in the past when we talked about, women, like, COVID and the women's response, or how it was disproportionately affecting women and it was disproportionately affecting women of color. And, we've had this conversation all throughout our past Q Crews. But it's the same concept that applies here. What is the recovery plan? Because now is the absolute opportunity. Now it's the opportunity. Your school systems did not work. Ask some teachers. You know what I mean? A lot of us have teachers in our family. I'm not saying it was the worst, but it sure wasn't the best that it could be, right? And why are we not aiming for the best? Out of crisis, when everything's kind of shot down, crumbled, we see all of our gaps, we see all of the weaknesses, they're glaring right now. Why don't we just maybe focus on, and I know we can't do it in our homes as an individual basis because we're all dealing with our day-to-day crises, but I think that there's a bigger conversation that perhaps if we all kind of move towards that, it would give us a bit more purpose, and we'd have some hope because we're all contributing to a new kind of era. And I think ultimately that's really where our focus needs to be, is what does tomorrow look like? Because it can't look like it looked like, it's never going to look like the past ever again. So we have to be over that. It's done. Like that whole show's over, right? Whatever we thought was normal, we got to wash our hands of it. We got to grieve it. It's done. So what does tomorrow look like? And what do we want it to look like? Now is the time to be writing to your politicians, to doing your research, to figuring out what policies affect what legislation affects what. Now is that time. And I can list off 15 pieces of legislation right now, guys, that are completely ridiculous, that we should be reviewing. Any legislations that limits public servants from having increases in their income, let's look at that. Why would that be? Why would that be when they're all the front lines right now, when we're relying on all of them right now, right? So there's a whole bunch of stuff. Like let's try to just look at the bright light, because there's a huge bright light right there, and we can get through it. But I think that we just need to see the opportunity in crisis. That's my 2 cents. And I'm going to apologize right now. I'm going to jump off probably in 10 minutes. Just got other stuff to do today, but it's good to see everyone. Tons of love. I know Robyn's giving me sorry, I got stuff. But yeah, so that's my 2 cents on it. So.
Well, thank you.
Whatever.
Thank you so much. All right. No, and who wants to follow up on that? I don't know, maybe Sylvia. Oh, no, Carmyn does. Carmen's got her hand up. Go ahead, Carmyn.
I love what you just said. We need change. And my son, who was the one that was struggling and who's 13 now and has had lots of therapy and lots of help and supports through school, he was the one that said, Mom, school is not made for us in this day and age. And he was talking about the Industrial Revolution. This is a 13-year-old, and he was telling me this when he was 11. So if we started looking at these kids, and listening from them and taking their experience about what works and what doesn't work, we would be so much better off. And there's all these people making policies that don't have the firsthand experience, that don't have the evidence-based information to make these decisions, and then how it impacts families and kids. So my 13-year-old would love to spearhead a campaign, bring along the kids with their voice.
Well, and what's wrong with that? I mean, we're always talking about giving people voice, and even on this platform here, and we have all of these ideas. So, like Rana, the next thing is like, okay, so let's do a letter. Let's do this instead of having all these great conversations. Yeah.
So sorry, I put my hands up because I have to just say this. No, this is not okay. Sorry, and I apologize. You guys know how I am. I just gotta say what has to be said. This is not about letter writing, okay? Because when you're writing letters have been the past process by which we communicated with leaders and politicians and whatnot. They looked at them, including in my office, but back in the day, you just could only do what you could do, right? So we're talking across the board. What do we need to be doing to force change, right? And that could look like a bunch of things. That could look like, teachers or nurses or doctors or frontline workers or whoever else just flipping the switch on people, being like, okay, well, if we are not being heard, then we can't do what we're supposed to do. I'm not saying like let's sing Kumbaya and hold hands and everything's gonna work out. I'm talking like, a very disruptive type of a process, because people in power, and from a woman of color, I'll tell you this over and over and over, and Tracy, you can speak to this, and everybody else, and Amy, you're here. Nobody wants to give up power ever. When power is questioned, people will do everything they can to hold on to it. And if that happens, we're stuck in the way that it's always been, right? So we just need to kind of figure out some creative ways. I think, Carmyn, you talked about your son. Maybe this is a kids campaign. Maybe it's not us. Maybe we're all just a bunch of idiots. Maybe it's these 13-year-old kids who have the vision and the knowledge and everything that they need. So I'm just saying, I'm with her. Just give it to the kids. Let them have an opportunity to speak about what the real life experiences sitting in those chairs is like. Maybe it's not even talking to teachers. I'm just saying maybe it's just not always letters. Like, there has to be something else. In a day of this much technology, in a day of this much, we have so many resources, let's do something creative and like disruptive and fun, like actually make the change. Sorry, I'm not saying like disrupt the world. I'm just saying like there's other ways to do it.
Okay, yeah, let's just make that clear. No, we're not starting a riot here. Okay.
I'm just trying to be like, there's more to do, right? Sorry.
No, and I love that idea, just giving people a platform. Sean, you can jump in, and then Amy too, and then Robyn. So this is a threesome. No, I shouldn't say that. But could this even work like with mental health, like getting more people out there who have experienced it, put them in the forefront? Robyn, we have this great series with you. Let's get our human back on. I was transformed from hearing and meeting these people. Maybe again, giving them a platform to talk about their experiences and how they can help the system change. Robyn?
God, I thought you were going to my other threesome partners first.
No.
Thank God it's not a threesome.
I just wanted to say that so they know who's going to speak. See, this virtual thing, I gotta be,
Look, I think one of the things is, when I heard Carmyn say like her 13-year-old, that's it. Why aren't we getting kids together to say, this is what we want? It's exactly the same as if we talk about peer support. People with their own experience in mental health, talking to other people about, hey, this is some stuff I was thinking about. This is stuff that works for me. I think this is the perfect opportunity for us to engage our future, and our future is our youth. It's not me, it's our youth, and engaging them in supporting each other. And I've seen kids that have learned about peer support people through the most horrific things, because they get what it's like. While we're forever going, we have well, actually, there is offence to people in politics. Crusty old suits, whether they're female or male, they're still like out of the loop of what it looks like on the ground. So, like, it is that place, like that whole thing, truth be told, that term languishing, it just makes me want to vomit. I'm like, yeah, we're having a tough day, right? It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to have that moment. And then everyone talks about resilience. And I did a talk for the city the other day about what the hell does that really mean? It means I have the ability to get through this moment to the next moment. And it might be that I'm not having a great one and the next one might be great, but I'm allowing myself to have some flexibility, have some compassion, have some empathy for myself, just be, and then take that next step, whatever that is. And I feel like I'm rambling, but I'm so excited to be on here. But I do, Tracy, I would say, I know you love the series of people with their own experience in mental health and growing from that. Let's put a bunch of kids on about what they think the education system should look like. Mm-hmm. Let's get that out there, because how much do I use calculus and algebra? I use it because it has my brain think, but it doesn't help me in life. Learning about how do I get through tough situations will support kids in life. How do I make the transition from school to university? Oh, my parents are looking after me. Oh shit, what do I do now? Why don't we have real stuff? I get we've got stuff to have us think and be critical, but we need real stuff too, because we have a bunch of kids coming out going, I don't know how to live in this world. Mm-hmm. How do I be super flexible when the world goes to hell in a handbasket with COVID? We don't teach that. And I just want to hear what young people have to say, or, because, I'm feeling old today, but, or what people who have just come out have got to say, because it's not working. Otherwise, we wouldn't have all the issues that we have. Now I'm going to be quiet. Sorry. I'm going to run it today. See, I don't have the hair.
I know.
I've got the tie, though. Does that help?
You could flip the tie. I'm going to go to Amy. Amy, you've done so much, in the community. You were, a peer support worker, and now you're working with Peer Connections and Sean, so congratulations. But also, too, you've seen so much as well, and I think you can resonate off of Robyn, right? Listening to the young people, and you've got a young daughter yourself.
Yeah, I would say I have to agree, check to everyone's comments and everyone's feedback. I think it's great. And I think what I want to say is, I actually failed to give a voice to Alyssa just over the weekend, Mother's Day, 1:30, we got that new announcement. I was in the process of oh my goodness, what am I going to do? I have work. How are we going to arrange for childcare? And what are they going to do with frontline workers? All that stuff. And I got that all sorted out on Monday at a staff meeting and talked to the school and whatnot. So have everything good to go for Wednesday. Then I go home, I'm excited. I'm like, okay, I'm a good mom. I got this all planned out. She's got school to go to, and as per usual, I let Alyssa know, and she cried. She's like, I don't want to go to school. And and then I asked her, I'm like, oh, so how come? Then she was going back to there's so many changes. I went from school, now not to school. Then she's like, Mom, for how long? I'm like, well, they're saying for 2 weeks. Then she was questioning, well, last year they said 2 weeks and it became the entire summer. I'm like, I can't go back and forth. And she started crying. Then even in the evening, she was having nightmares about it. I'm like, wow, I failed here. I did not listen. I didn't ask for her feedback or what she wanted to see kind of unfold for the rest of the 2 weeks or perhaps even till June. So yeah, their voices matter, and I think they would benefit in terms of coming up with a new curriculum. What do they need growing up in this technology savvy world right now?
Aw. So is she okay now, or?
Well, we'll do a check-in after school today, but she had to go to school today. So.
Aw. Well, yeah, it's tough. I mean, I don't know. Maybe we'll go to Charlotte now. Our family, Charlotte and Kirsten, our family, all in peer support. Your meeting tonight will be like probably overloaded.
Yeah, our family group keeps getting bigger and bigger each week, and family looks different to everybody. We've got every kind of family. We've got coworkers and friends and grandparents and siblings and aunts and uncles, like everything in there. But you know, one of the things that, like, Kirsten and I both homeschooled our children before COVID, and so hearing these conversations brings back my homeschooling was for maybe a year and a half. Kirsten's was a little longer, and that was when both of our children didn't fit the mold of what school expected of them and what they wanted to be part of. And I love where this conversation's going, because I know that there's a lot of kids and moms and parents out there that have been trying for change for when the school doesn't fit for what the needs are for the child. And so whoever wants to spearhead that, I know Kirsten and I would be on the bandwagon for that, because there's some really awesome models of schooling out there. And most of you guys know I grew up in Memphis, and there's schools in Memphis, public schools, for kids who are into the arts, who are into trades, and you don't have to go to that school in your neighborhood. If this is more of a school that fits what you think school should be, you're allowed to go to those. And I often wish that they would consider something like that for our community as well too. And you know, and the homeschooling for some kids is going to continue. Like, I know kids who are thriving from that, and they figured out the community piece as well, to, you know, to still have the friends and stuff. So I look forward to seeing where it goes, and I'm like everybody else. I think it's time for change, especially in our education system, and look forward to participating in wherever. And I'm throwing Kirsten in that as well, wherever Kirsten and I can help. Kirsten, you want to add to that?
God, my head didn't even go there. But you're right, we did homeschool. That was a little while ago. And yeah, like for those families that their kids don't fit into the box that is, you know, made out of stone in the education system, what do you do? And it's amazing, because also tying this into the experience or the value of lived experience. And what I learned through the process of trying to educate my daughter outside of the confines and the mechanisms of a high school that you walk into and they churn you up, and some young people don't do well in that, right? So and thinking back to what I found, alternative programs, how fantastic, let's apply. Oh wait, there's a waiting list and we're like 22nd on it, and it's like things that sound like great ideas but they haven't really panned out. And ultimately, in my family story, my daughter didn't go to high school in a high school setting. She did do school from home, and we bounced around a couple of opportunities that didn't pan out until we did find an alternative program, and she completed high school on a medical leave at home. And I can tell you that was, I think, more exciting for me than it was for her when she graduated, because that was a journey that we were both on. But what I wanted to speak to that is, you know, the value of lived experience and what I can share with families, especially like a Wednesday night when things come up. And I have these answers because I was so invested and spent weeks and months trying to figure it out and have conversations with folks in these systems, that I often get greeted with, how do you know this stuff? And it's like, I lived it. I lived it. And the second part I just wanted to add to the policymakers. Like I truly, truly believe the policymakers, and I don't want anyone to jump on me because I'm going to put it out there. I do feel that they lack that experience and their intent is not to be a barrier, but it happens over and over and over again. And when we can, in a gracious and effective way, point out the flaws and the holes in this policy, and we can get them to listen, I do believe we can create change. That's where it happens. And I love Rana when you're saying, like, you know, tying it into Carmen's 13-year-old son, and yes, like do something different, make that noise, ask those questions, create that community where we are asking for change. And it's so far beyond a letter writing. It's that we've got to get creative. And that's all I'll say. I could go on this round, but that's all I'll say.
Well, I agree with you, and I think you too, Kirsten, out of all of us, know what it takes to bend the ear of the policymakers in your journey with your daughter and what you've gone through. Just to kind of give everybody a chance. I mean, she fought hard. Well, her and her husband did everything to get her daughter care here in Manitoba, and the only care that they could was out of province. And she forced the issue with the government and finally won. The only case or whatever was unprecedented, and the government did pay for the medical costs for her daughter out of province, and it paved the way for 14 other families. Am I correct, or Oh, higher.
Amazing.
Oh.
We're way up there now, but yeah, and thank you. And that's something that I just wanted to point out that we do at Robyn Priest Live Your Truth and All in Families. That's our give back to community, and we are happy to do it. And if there's ever a family out there or a connection that you think we can help support them get the same and funded, bring it. I love that.
She's a fighter. Don't let that little sweet Pollyanna smile fool you, because she is a firecracker, definitely, between her and Charlotte. I won't even mention Robyn in there. I'm going to get back to you, Sean. My bad. I was going to do that ping pong thing up to you, but I want to let Sylvia and Sonia too in on this now. Sort of now getting back again to that whole mental health bubble issue, maybe taking that, to corporations, to businesses, in light of your new program too as well. And then spinning off on Rana, she says, okay, now's the time to change. Let's change it now. Maybe programs like what you have in mind, Sonia and Sylvia, can pave the way to make change, correct? For mental health as a whole, in business and in personal life.
Absolutely. Sorry, you go ahead, Sonia.
I'm just going to say something, and then Sylvia can jump in. I'm just saying my theory has been for a long time, because as much as I've done a million things, I'm a strategist at heart. So I actually want to speak to the school thing a little bit later, because I'm like, oh no, there's an easier way, because that's how my brain thinks. So I'll talk about that after. But I've always had a theory that strategic employee wellness programs have a chance to save the healthcare system. I've been I have talked to corporation owners, I have the theory and the strategy and all that stuff. And then I met Sylvia. and then we teamed up because she had a similar mindset. And so I'm always like, they're already there, just freaking build it already. So if I'm looking at the school stuff, I'm like, well, why don't we just start a couple of the cooler schools so that the province gets some lived experiences, and then the government can consult with them, because you've already got all the students signed up and you don't even know. It's just go build a school. That's my strategy. Is that careless? Is that too flippant? Because I'm like, just go build a school. I know 100,000 kids that will sign up if they can. So I'm always looking for an easier way. And with the healthcare system, because I do integrated natural and Western medicine events, that's my thing that I do. I put naturopaths and medical doctors in a room, and I'm like, okay, let's work this out. How can we work together to help people? And then I bring that into the mental health and everything. And I'm just like, there is an easier way. Don't try to change the system, because then when Gen X dies, we're all going to say, dear Gen Y and Gen Z, we're sorry. That's just what it's going to be. We can do a lot, and I think it's facilitating that stuff. So Sylvia, you.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say that this whole conversation is the metaphor for how we deal with languishing. because everything that everyone has talked about today comes down to one thing, and that is hope. If you don't have hope, you've got nothing. And languishing is the absence of mental health. Sonia and I got completely triggered when we read that definition the other day. We were like, do not refer to people as languishing, because you are presuming that they have no mental health. Another definition is failure to make progress or be successful. Excuse me, if you're surviving a pandemic, you are both making progress and being successful every single day that you put one foot in front of the other. So I'm so triggered right now. I'm going to calm down. Don't identify with these labels. Sorry, Sonia.
No, we did a 6-minute rant on LinkedIn on this yesterday.
We had a rant about this because
don't own it. Don't own the label.
No, we do not need to give a label to everything. The reason we give a label to it is because we lack the words to connect our collective experience sometimes. So the reason we can say, I feel depressed today and have sympathy and empathy is because we share that common understanding with many people. Or the reason I feel like I'm still grieving the loss of my mother, when I say that, as a society, we understand that we can share that experience. We do not, we're choosing a word like languishing, somebody, whoever they are choosing a word like languishing so that we can have a shared experience, but we do not need to own that. I forget the lovely woman who spoke earlier and said, if I wake up in the morning and say I'm languishing, that sucks. Like, I don't want to get out of bed. I worked in palliative care before I became a professional speaker. I worked in palliative care with people who were dying. They were not languishing. There was no absence of mental health. Of course, they were not being successful in business or whatever. But they weren't by definition making progress, but they were not languishing. They had hope. Hope is the antithesis of languishing. And out of chaos, Rana spoke so eloquently about chaos, out of chaos always comes order. There is no other option. It is the way, it is a law. Out of chaos comes order. And if we can focus on the hope through this pandemic, and that is something that Sonia and I, with our new program, are really trying to focus on. Survival of the fittest is about moving from surviving through this land of thriving into thriving and being able to go back there when life gets tough. That's really all about hope. Can I get a hallelujah? I'm done.
Yes.
Oh my God, can I just say,
Yes.
I'm in love with both of you.
We're in love with all of you.
Oh my God, you speak my language. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Oh,
And that's what's going to change the education system, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the hope and the movement and the energy of children and adults working together to create something better. And yeah, let's find the simplest strategy. Back to you, Sonia.
can I just say, like, that work stuff too? Like, we've got the schools and the work. We just, Charlotte and I just signed an agreement with like a company, and we're going to be doing all the peer support development for all the companies they work with.
Beautiful.
That's awesome too, right? Like, getting people just to talk about how it is. Because I always talk about peer support, but I think it's like just being human is about relationships and relatability. Like, that's my term these days, that we just want to be with each other on a journey, whatever that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'll shut up. Sorry, Tracy.
No, that's so
okay.
good.
That's okay. I want to just get Susan, and Cynthia, are you still around? I think she just went off. But Susan, I mean, through all of this, now we're talking about movement and change. Let's get back to just common socialization. I did mention at the beginning of the show reentry anxiety and all of that. So, and Lindsay said too, when Israel just kind of went boop, flipped the switch, and boom, life is back to normal as that. And she said that no, it's not going to be normal for everybody.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're absolutely right. Some of the things that I love about the comments I've heard today are that we're talking about the micro level and the macro level. So the macro level policy, we absolutely have to address that. And the micro level part is about connecting with the user. What's their user experience like? What's going on with them day to day, and what's happening in, when they get up out of bed. Am I languishing today? We know we don't love that word, but how am I doing today, and how do we connect? So we refer to how do we reintroduce ourselves to seeing people face to face, going to different events, speaking somewhere else besides on video. Not everybody's comfortable with video. Now they are more so. Now we have to get comfortable again with face to face, and being in a place where, now we're closer to people and we're actually having a conversation. It's different. We have to help people who don't do as well with that in the first place, and who've basically been at home for the last year or so, on their own a lot more so, to now to reintroduce themselves to this society where we're connecting again, but we're not sure, do we elbow each other, or do we just, I don't know, what do we do? So I think we have a huge opportunity to recreate things, but we really have to be so careful to understand that each person's experience is going to be different. And just because we create a policy or a platform or something for everyone, or for larger group of people, doesn't mean that it's going to work for everyone. So I heard some parents and some other people here talk about some different experiences with it. This didn't work with this person, this didn't work, I wish I had asked them. Fact is that everybody's multi-layered, and we need to know what works better for them. Do they want to know in advance what the time frame is, what the plan is, because they'll really plan for that? Or are they someone who can kind of go with the flow and they like that? There's a completely different reintroduction with two different styles. I think the re-socialization of our experience is going to be it's going to be a challenge in itself as well, and we're stepping into new territory here, and we have to help each other as we move through that. So, it's thrilling to hear all these wonderful, incredible programs happening there. I know one of the things that I like to work with my young people in particular when I do the programs is that co-creation, like what works for them, because I think it works for me. But, I'm in my 50s, and if it's someone who's 18 or 20 or 25, totally different experience, and I need to learn from them what works for them. They're brilliant and they're fascinating. They come up with such wonderfully creative things. So that's one thing I'm working on, is that co-creation part of the stuff that comes up. So I think we have to focus on that as we move forward, is co-creating with all the different groups. Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
We've got a whole bunch of groups here that I think have a plan and could be great to work together. I'm going to go to Sean now again. You came off right at the top of the show. Now it's almost wrapping up or whatever. No, we can still go on. I mean, I never thought the conversation was going to go in so many ways, but I mean, this is all, I think, really great information too for what you do too as well.
I love this conversation. There's so much here. We're on till 4 o'clock today.
Yeah, and everybody just
tomorrow.
Yeah. I think we should just bring out cocktails now. I mean, because it is the afternoon now.
Right.
No, this is a great conversation. There's so many pieces, so many things I want to chime in about. But really what it comes down to is this fundamental question that I think that we're all discussing. And that's really how do we validate, honor, and include the voices of those whom the system is not serving? Just bringing my own experience into it. I was stuck in the healthcare system. I was diagnosed with 4 different mental illnesses over a 10-year period. And at the end of that, I was told that I would not recover, that I'd be medicated and hospitalized for life. So if I had listened, and this is not a rant on psychiatry, this is not a rant on medical doctors, there's a whole piece to this. The integrative approach that Sonia spoke to saved my life. But coming out of this, here's the thing. I got the help that I needed because somebody listened to my voice. They identified, they listened to the goals that I had for my life and said, hey, I think I can help you with that. It's a medical doctor from the States, and this is not about rah, rah, rah. this particular doctor. It's the concept of we need to do that co-creation, we need to do that co-production. What I love about this, and right now what's happening in this space in Winnipeg, is that our organization, there's a shift in psychiatry. They're listening to peer support. We're currently in collaboration with psychiatry from Quebec and the University of Montreal, and they're like, let's study this stuff. Let's get a community of practice going nationally. Let's involve the other provinces and really give voice to people with lived experience. Because just a social commentary, we're so quick to pathologize, to prescribe, and then treat and monitor people that don't fit into our system. And it is time. And for me, it's always been about, okay, what's the platform? I made a full recovery, by the way. I'm here fully recovered. And now, like, I am a huge advocate for this collaborative approach. I made the decision to step away from music. I was pursuing music professionally and just decided, no, you know what? I need to not sit on the periphery of the system, but to get on the inside of the system and transform it from the inside out. So I look at platform. I'm very strategic about what I use as a platform to encourage, to collaborate with the system, right? So it's not about just railing against, but getting inside and transforming from the inside out. And there's a lot to say about that, but I'll cap it there.
Oh, wow. I
Amazing.
mean, yeah, totally. Carmyn, too, I mean, for yourself and developing KidThink, and again, from your lived experience and from your sons. And by the way, I'm going off topic a little bit. There is a video that you had. Is that your son speaking?
Yes, it is him.
He
is
priceless. We need him on the show. Like, I will put it out. I like Hugh. Hugh will give the platform for children, for people with lived experience to share. And what would be really cool is to have all of you on too, to have that conversation, right? To learn more, maybe get more ideas, maybe. And I know too, because I've interviewed as many kids too as well. And so I know your son will have a lot to say and not just start, I don't know, because I know kids can do that. As much as, yeah, right? Amy, if I brought your daughter on, she'd probably, or I don't know, she might have a lot to say too. But if kids are on with kids, and it's the same thing if people with lived experience are on together, you create a safe environment, right, Carmyn?
Yeah, what I'm so proud of my son is that, he lives with ADHD and anxiety, and there's no stigma to him. He's open and honest about it. He talks about how his child psychologist changed his life, and it was a team of people. It wasn't just one person. It was working with the teachers. It was working with especially us as parents on how do we handle some of his outbursts and his inability to pay attention. And, there was a stigma. We ended up going outside of Canada for help in New York. And what we've noticed is it's the early intervention and prevention that is so important. 70% of mental illnesses, their onset, are in under 12. And that's why, and these kids, like, he couldn't be the voice. He couldn't tell us that my brain isn't working like the other kids, and that's why I can't sit in the classroom. So it had to be us as parents to be his advocate and find the right place to get the right resources to train us, to train the teachers, and then to give him the tools in his toolbox to help calm himself down when he was having those outbursts. So he's gone through a lot, and that's why during this pandemic, he actually has more tools than our younger son, who's just been a sports enthusiast. School is easy for him. But now that there's been so much change, he doesn't have the tools in his toolbox. So now we have to focus on him. So it's been a very interesting learning experience. But he's he doesn't fit the school mold. It's all about marks and that, and he has so much more to offer. So we continue still in grade 7 to be his advocate and to talk about his skills. And, there might need to be accommodations, but he does have the brain power. He just might not have the same attention span and the same ability to sit down for long periods of time like the other kids.
So to Carmyn, just before KidThink now, do you see it really having a very important place then a safe place, right? So parents can bring their children and to have a better understanding of their own children, because I know, I mean, there's nothing more as a parent. You want your child to fit in and be perfect and everything work out well. And, you know, not every child is different. But I really think a place like KidThink could be as much of a hope for the child, a hope for the parents.
Yes, it really does start with the parents. And for me, in my own experience, what is really important about KidThink is to be able to talk to someone right away. You know, it might be a 2 or 3 week wait to actually get in and see someone, but at least to have someone with the skilled enough knowledge to say, okay, yes, you're a fit here, or here's some resources here, or this is a place to look at. And just that reassurance that you're not alone. And this happens, and, you know, we're here for you, or there's other resources here for you.
Yeah, no, it's so great and so wonderful that it is here in Winnipeg. Oh, so Cynthia, you did come back. Sorry. She's back. You know, through all of this, you know the conversation. You probably know all of the people too as well. Cynthia is our across the pond correspondent, as Susie fondly acknowledges her, but she's a Winnipegger at heart. But we're talking about this lived experience, you know, kids talking about their own feelings about school and education and everything like that. Representing, you know, the 2S LGBTQ community too as well. I mean, all what's happening in the world too is more of their voice being heard. And how, you know, and how can we make that better?
Good evening, everyone. So, yeah, Tracy, I think the interesting aspect is, to an earlier point, you know, for me, the kids are hope. The kids are absolute hope, simply because they are not our future leaders. They are the leaders of today. And that is because they are aware of it. They are ready to go into action. They have the ability to amplify the message and to hit the people in non-traditional ways that us of older experience may otherwise approach the problem. And I think that's because they are much more consciously aware of the challenges and the differences, versus a lot for us was unconsciously aware, and we've had to work at it becoming conscious. And I think that's really socially a huge difference between the youth of today and when we were youth of varying decades. So I think with that perspective, sure, I mean, there's an absence of skills and so forth, but, you know, skills comes through education. And if the system isn't engaging you in education, how can you gather those skills? And that applies equally to the 2S LGBTQIA plus community as much as it does anyone else. There's other issues that impact, you know, the community at large, much as it does many other marginalized communities. And a lot of that has to do with social stigmas. When we talk about mental health, it's why do some people not fit in? My son's ADHD with a nonverbal learning disorder. So as a parent, I've had to learn so much about how to support that person. And to the conversation that, you know, Carmyn was talking about, I had to become a partner with the education system, with the teachers and with the psychologists and everything. Not, I own it. It was, we're all partners in this, partners in the child's success. And so, I mean, and I've used that in business. And I've had people come forward and go, I'm undiagnosed, but I believe that, you know, I may have Asperger's. And I've never been trained, but I knew from being a parent with a child, I understood what it meant. And I understood what adaptations I needed to look at. I'm sure if you ask most people in the business world today, how do you respond? How do you adapt? They have no clue, because they have not gone through the learning cycle. If you ask them, how do you deal with a 2S LGBTQIA plus community member who wants to work for you, but they look different than the way you might expect them to or everybody else? They've never had to, so they've never developed those skills. And so The challenge becomes how to deal with it. And that's why I say the kids know. They know. They're not kids, they're leaders today, not leaders of tomorrow. They're leaders today. And we need to just stand back and let them lead and be there to support them with what we know and what abilities we can bring. So I'll leave it at that 2 cents.
Oh, Cynthia, you're always spot on, and you're right. Kids are so accepting. They accept without understanding, and that's something that it's a hard pill to swallow for the rest of us oldies, but I think we're getting there. We're getting there, and I think it's right through communication. I'm just thinking about all these things now. I'm going to throw it out there. Someone can answer, but what if nothing changes?
If we do nothing, nothing will change. If we do something, we will affect change, period.
Okay, I feel better. Okay, we've been told. So I'm just going to go, I guess, round here. So it's kind of hard to say. I'm not too sure. So if this continues in this lockdown, what kind of conversations are we going to have going forward? Sylvia.
Well, I think we need to have more conversations about, sorry for the siren. I'll just wait. I think we need to have more conversations about what we can do instead of what we can't do. The things that we are hopeful about instead of the things that we are angry and resentful about. And I'm not saying to be Pollyanna. You know, I post this and I talk about this all the time. You have to acknowledge whatever it is that you're feeling or experiencing, for sure, but we don't have to stay there. You know, I don't wake up in the morning happy, bubbly, positive, and feeling like I can tackle the world every day. But what I do is I ask myself in the morning, what kind of a day do I want to have? Not what kind of a day is this going to be, but what kind of a day do I want to have, and what would I like to create for my experience today? What do I need? What do I want to experience? I think we can take a little more ownership of that instead of kind of waiting for the government announcement to see how we're going to feel today.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Amy? What kind of conversations do you see if we're continuing like this?
I don't foresee it continuing like this. So again, like, we have to take action. I feel like every one of us today that are on this platform, we're behind the scenes and working really diligently in creating change, making changes, positive changes. And I think eventually we're going to come together, compile all those resources, and boom, like we got this.
Yes, girl, thank you. Susan?
What kind of conversations?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I mean, I agree. I think that we're coming out of this, that it's going to change for the positive. But every time I think that we have another wave and then suddenly we're in a lockdown again, I think, oh, I can't believe we're here again. And it's, you know, it's hard to sort of pick up and go, okay, we can do this again, because every time we get close to the end of the marathon, the goalposts are changed. And it's like, what? Another 10 miles? God, I need a new pair of runners. So yeah, these conversations they'll change, they'll evolve. I mean, hopefully once the vaccination levels reach high enough that we can move out of these lockdowns and isolations, and we can start to live a new normal life, because I don't feel like we're fully in a normal life yet. We're just getting there. We have to start to look at what that's going to be like. At the same time, I think there's always going to be that element of, you know, at any given time, can we pivot or pirouette and have to shift with something else that might come our way? We'll have the strength for that, and we'll have the resilience, and we can look back on what we were able to do last time. It's definitely going to be different, but I have great excitement for the summer coming ahead. I mean, we're in Winnipeg, we love our summers. At the same time, I'm also ready for, you know, what comes my way. I'm going to be there, and I'm going to do the best I can and help other people the best that I can at the same time. So which tomorrow brings, and I'll be there as well.
Oh, Charlotte and Kirsten. I always put you two together.
Yeah, we are a package.
I know. Yeah.
The conversations that Kirsten and I and Robyn are having right now, and we're thinking big, and we're creating content right now, and everything we're doing right now is focused on the family and all the things to support families when someone in your family is struggling with a mental health struggle. So we've got this awesome client in the States that I wish we could go down there and spend time with them, but they believe in what's needed for the family, and they've just given us this incredible platform to create workshops and videos and just some pretty amazing things. So and I can't speak completely for Kirsten, but a lot of times Kirsten's in my brain goes the same way. So what our conversations are is like, hey families, we see you're struggling, and what can we do to create some awesome workshops or support groups or individual peer support, and let's make some change happen. And I'm, as you know, Winnipeg's small, and I work a lot with Lindsay, I work a lot with Sean, and I work a lot with Amy, and I know that they all have the same nods, because we're just trying to create this space, for a healthier community that we live in.
Okay.
Right, Kirsten, to you.
And I'll add on that, and on a lighter note, whatever conversations we have moving forward, I'd like to do it in heels without tights or pajama bottoms on.
Yes, yes,
And out of this little office of mine with
Yes.
people.
Yes,
So,
yes.
That's mine.
That's yours. Okay, that's done. I see Sylvia's got a nice backyard too, and I do too. So I'm already taking mental notes here. Well, and Sonia too, for you.
If I'm looking forward as the resident strategist in our business partnership here with Sylvia, I'm always looking at what's like the baseline fundamental thing that could help everyone a little bit, apart from the fact that I have the teachers and the students in my office. So if anyone wants some feedback on that, we can talk about that and how anxiety and IBS break up in my office, because there's that component. It's not always that, but sometimes it's that. I go to what we've kind of called our compass for survival of the fittest. The map is hysterical. We just have Gen X references on it right now. It's really funny. If anyone wants to see it, we could share it with you. But we've got thriving, or survival, surthrival, and thriving over here. Basically Mordor, Middle Earth-ish, the Shire. So we
Yes.
so just for a picture in your heads, and our magical little compass that we didn't create, that we're using, is just something very basic, which you've probably heard of, which is the 3 universal triggers of stress. I use this when I talk to parents, when I talk to CEOs and presidents in the boardroom. I'm like, we're all really managing are the 3 universal triggers of stress, which is lack of information, uncertainty, loss of control. So when someone's freaking out, which of those 3 things can you help them with? Or if you're freaking out, which of those 3 things can you help yourself with? Can you get a little bit of control on something? Can you get some information? It works with 2-year-olds. It works with 79-year-olds that are grumpy, because those are the 3 triggers. So you can now, and I'm sure a lot of you know this already, but maybe it's just a little refresher. This works for almost everything.
Yeah.
And if there's going to be more conversations and you're going to go full circle. So I talked to the owner of this big company. I'm like, if you have this strategy for the parents in your organization, to have this strategy for their kids, to have this strategy for the school, and then put the pressure on the systems that way, then things change in the schools. Then people spend their money differently, and where the money goes, the changes in the policy goes. Because every dollar that we have is a vote for the world that we want, and we've lost that power and we don't know we have it. I was going to stop again because I always go on forever, but it's those 3 universal triggers of stress that are really helpful. And Sylvia and I bring them into everything that we do.
Yeah.
Wow,
Their
it's
goal.
so simple. Lindsay too. I mean, and I'm like, maybe for you, Lindsay, I know you're talking about still having to write your thesis to become a certified psychologist. I'm just thinking too, I know as the topic was what kind of conversation, but now do you think turning towards looking at the family as a whole might be the start of, solving maybe some problems, mental health problems, in children and teens and adults together?
I think I'll go back to what I originally said. I think that any conversations we're having with anybody about their mental health, their well-being, their safety, it's being honest and saying we don't have a magic 8-ball. We don't know what will happen in August, in the fall, in a year from now. And we can't live in the past. We can't live a month from now or a week from now. We can only live right now, the here and now. And I think that when we're talking about what will happen or what we see or what we think, the answer is we don't know. And that's the honesty. And I think we can't lie when we're talking about the worries and the wondering and the questions. We just don't know. And I think we have to be real and honest and upfront. And I think what Sylvia said as well, that feelings are okay and we're allowed to have them and there's a space for them as long as we have them for right now, right? That we don't have them, they won't last forever. We're allowed to be frustrated. We're allowed to be angry. We're allowed to be annoyed, and that's okay as long as we know that we're in this together and we have each other and that everyone has someone to talk to.
Oh, that's so great. Sean, maybe for you, future conversations, what are they going to be like?
Well, it's really interesting. Looking at the pandemic, there's two phases really. There's the response phase and the recovery phase. And we never seem to get out of the response phase because with all the new waves and the variant, we never get into that recovery phase. So if this continues on the way that it does, it's constantly this pivoting and shifting and trying to just respond to new stimuli, new stressors. And so my concern is just when we get to the recovery phase, looking at the echo pandemic, we're talking about that reentry anxiety, but there's going to be, and I'm so thankful to be in this industry, but there's going to be a huge influx of people that are looking for support during the recovery phase of the pandemic. So the response phase right now, I think is really for us is gearing up. It's having those conversations about how do we prepare for what's coming. Not to be pessimistic, but just saying, hey, look, this is the reality. Looking at these numbers of people that are really struggling and looking at the fallout. This is going to have a cumulative effect on people's lives, and we need to ramp up in how we're able to be there for them.
Yeah. Right. Wow. So many programs. And last, but definitely not least, Cynthia, your worldly vision, conversations, or Cynthia, moving forward.
Well, I think there's a lot of truth to what everyone says. I guess, being in the UK, and with my world travels last year, I kind of see the world very different than my former Winnipeg-centric view. And I think, Prime Minister Boris Johnson said it here. It's not that we're looking to live after COVID, it's we're learning to live with COVID. COVID will become like the flu, like whatever. It's something that we learn to live with, and through annual vaccinations and so forth, it's part of what's here. I think that the key is that, all of these amazing mental health professionals that are helping families and individuals and businesses, they're going to get way busier. And really what we need to do is back to the conversation of, the idea of the kids in the school, it's a different set of tools that are needed. And that I talk about fear, uncertainty, and doubt, the FUD factor that we live. And the FUD factor is what I find, it's the voice in our head. It's the conversation we have with ourselves. It's, as I work and coach women or coaching people in the LGBT plus community, that comes up in so many different ways, and it's ingrained in society of the messages that we get fed. And the key is learning to deal with the FUD factor, and I put in the chat, and it's, you know, to learn to live your life like a clock. A clock knows that it has history, but it can't go backwards. It can't go back to the history. A clock is designed to move forward, and we, like a clock, need to learn to figure out how to move forward and live with this environment. And quite frankly, I don't think we've had the tools, because certainly as somebody who's dealt with and deals with mental health challenges, it's simply, I didn't have the tools, and I'm developing the tools, and every day I do the work. I develop more tools. I develop more capability with the tools, and that's what's missing in a lot of people, and all of these great folks here are going to do it. And where as a coach with a non-mental health specialist background that I can do to help people or direct them to mental health specialists like Lindsay and others in the community, then, you know, that's us doing our duty to help people to grow. So, yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Cynthia. And thank you, everybody. It's been such an incredible conversation. Yes, Robyn. Yes, I know. And so many like-minded people. I don't know. For me, this is my therapy. This invigorates me and makes me want to do things. So through all of this, I know we're in this until May 30th. We will continue these talks. Sean, we are welcome anytime. Tuesdays at 11:30. And if you can give Amy a little time or a lunch break, then that'd be great. But thank you so much, everybody. It's been a wonderful time, and we will be back next week at our regular time, Tuesday at 11:30. So check it out. I'm going to work on getting the kids on too, and maybe through Sean and Robyn, we can work through getting some lived experienced people on our show too. I think it's really important. All right.
Tracy, can I say
Yes.
something really quickly?
Yes, really quickly.
I think the conversations, as simple as it is, the conversations we're going to have are real ones. We're not going to pretend. We're just going to be real. And if we can be real, we've got to show up at whatever turns up. Thank you.
You're welcome. Enjoy your Wednesday. Enjoy your Wednesday.
Thank you, Tracy.
Great. Thank you so much,
Thank
Lindsay, for
you.
coming. Thank you, Cynthia. I know this was late for you. Thanks so much, Sean. It was wonderful meeting you.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
Tracy. Thanks.
Bye, Susan.